This is a very simple circuit here. I got a 12 volt power supply and a 1 kilo ohm resistor. Um, Anything that requires power has resistance. Sometimes they are just resistors for different purposes, but I'll probably use them to simulate a whole bunch of things. This right here is a probe to help determine amperage, so this, if I connect it and hit play, will show me that I have 12.0 milliamps passing through this wire. Now that's the amount of electricity total, but not work done. Now this is a voltage meter that requires two probes. If I connect them both, you show I have 12 volts total. Now voltage is actually difference between two things, so there's 12 volts difference between this point and this point. That's always going to be the case if you connect on two sides of a 12 volt source here. Now, if I were to stop my simulation and drop in another resistor here, sometimes this program is a little finicky. Alright, so now I have two resistors. I still have probes on either side of the battery, so it still should be reading 12 volts as soon as I hit play. See, 12 volts. Now I've noticed the amps have been changed because now I have more resistance, so the amps I have more than I did before. So if I move this over here, you'll notice I actually have 6 volts because there's a 6 volt difference between here. I lost half of that over here, half of my 12. This is what happens if you run any kind of circuit in series. Series is where I have the positive side of one wire, negative, positive, negative. If instead of in series I did this in parallel, it look something more like this. Now, when I run this one, each one is going to have the same amount of voltage, so this is going to read 12 volts, no matter where I hook it up to. The stacking side. But it's the amperage that might vary depending on where I'm at. So we're going to go in here, this should read the total amount of amps of the circuit. That's going to read the voltage between the two. So I have 12 volts. Now, it doesn't matter, these wires are connected, so it's never going to matter where along here I connect to it. Same thing on this side, it doesn't matter where because they're connected, so it doesn't matter. But it does matter this one. So now it's negative because I'm on the negative half of the circuit. This should go positive. See, doesn't really matter, just determines direction. But that number is going to change as soon as I drop it down here. See, now I'm at 12, and 12 over here. Pretty crazy. Hopefully you found a way to splice these two videos. It'll make my life easy. Now there is a formula to determine the resistance of a circuit versus the voltage and amperage. You need two, and then you can figure out a whole bunch of other information. But I'll go over that another time. Now anything like a car or motorcycle, that kind of thing, runs 12 volts. Unless you have something old like my motorcycle that does 6, but in general you're going to run 12. Each component needs 12 volts, which means each component will actually be ran in parallel with each other like these currently are, so that way they always have voltage. Now, it doesn't matter how many of these I add in, no matter what, I'm going to get those 12 volts as long as they are properly connected in parallel. Doesn't make a difference. Now, what you will run into is if you, sorry, these are going 0 because these two probes are connected. Where you run into problems on motorcycles is if you either wire it incorrectly and put it in series, Dylan accidentally stuck a light up here, and all of a sudden nothing would work because I had less power between all of it. Something like this right here would absolutely make a motorcycle stop working, because if you notice, well, there's 12 volts here, the rest of my components are only getting 3 volts, which is not nearly enough to power it, so that starts getting problematic. So the amps here are going to be the total amount, just like it would be down here. It's only in here that you start noticing the amperage changing depending on where I connect it to. Let's connect over here. So you can get 3 everywhere I go. Oh, this is 6 because it actually is the combined amperage between these two. Pretty simple stuff. So, if you're trying to wire motorcycles and cars, don't do that. Make sure everything stays properly in parallel with each other. Now, as you've noticed, as I add things, the amperage here does actually, the total amount does start to increase after a while. See, now I'm up to 30 something. Again, it's negative only because I'm on the negative side. It doesn't care. You can mostly ignore that unless you're trying to combine power sources. But yeah, so as this increases, you will run into problems if your power source can't put out enough. Initially, everything is powered by your battery, but your battery gets its power from an alternator. And if your alternator can't consistently produce enough power to run all your accessories, your bike's going to die as soon as your battery runs out. Now, in this circuit diagram here, this is a unlimited power source, just for the simplicity of building this. So I won't ever actually run out of power. But obviously real life doesn't have those same issues. The other thing you have to worry about when wiring motorcycles and stuff is accidentally, words English, causing a short. So a short will happen if I do something like this. Now, electricity is lazy. It is always going to take the path of least resistance. So in this case, if it has to go all the way through these resistors before it comes out, it takes more effort, doesn't really want to do it. So right now I gave it a clear shot between them. So now, still going to get 12 volts here. If I stick this here, get a whole bunch of amps, get some power. Looks like it's going to make a liar out of me. Saying I do have power coming through here, which is weird. I should have a short. I'll have to figure that out later. But in real life, this causes problems. It makes it so all of this stops working properly, can burn things up, because you suddenly have unrestricted power just flowing through a connection that wasn't there for it. This is actually why water damage is a problem, because it creates a short in the circuit which lets it bypass everything. Oh, my voltage isn't there. Curious. So this diagram here is closer to something I was shown. This, as that obviously states, is an LED. This is a switch. The key equals space just means when I press the space bar, it opens or closes. When you open a circuit, it means power will not be flown because it's not a full circuit anymore. This does not connect and close. It obviously closes, and now electricity can flow freely throughout. The way this is wired, this LED will only turn on if this switch gets power. The reason for that is because obviously the power has to pass through here and through the switch before it can make it all the way around. So right now it shows nano amps. Go, one of those, I forget the Greek terms. Which basically means there's so much resistance that it actually doesn't really count. It wouldn't be nearly enough to turn on a light. If I close it, see how it suddenly jumps up. Now power's flowing through. Now I have my voltage doesn't ever change because the difference is still there. If I stick this probe here on this side of the switch, you'll notice it's 0 when it's open, and I get voltage when it's closed. Should be the same over here. You also notice the light right there turns on and off. Now, so in this case, the light turns on and off based off the switch. If I disconnect this here, let's turn the simulation off. This doesn't really do anything good either, because what's happening now is power comes to this is off, but it's bypassing it to go here through this. That's why I still have voltage, still have amperage. When I turn this on, I get more power because now it's actually, you notice even the light turns off. So this one actually is working in reverse, where the light is off when it has power, because that whole short thing I was talking before, it's causing a short to turn the light off, so that way the power goes through the resistor instead of through the LED, which is also bad. The way to fix that, so that way if we want always on LED, is we'd have to connect the negative side of the LED to the negative side here. If I go power here, now I'm going to have a constantly on LED no matter what the switch does. This switch here is only going to power what's here, which is a decent way if you really want just a light to tell you if you have power on your circuit. Downside being is you will constantly be draining your battery. So if you're going to do something like this, I recommend you put this after your ignition. Ignition is going to work the same way as a key. There's a switch here. Just make sure that when you wire it up, assume this is the rest of your circuit. You want to make sure that this light is in parallel to the rest of the circuit, which means it's going to connect from here to here and from here to here. These two are now in parallel. This is after the switch, so it's only going to come on with the switch, which will make sure it doesn't drain your battery when it's just sitting there. LED stands for light emitting diode. A diode is something that only allows power to pass through one way, so this LED actually would not work if I flipped these wires. So if I went from here to here, it doesn't matter how many times I press this button here, that light will not come on because it only goes one way. It shouldn't cause damage, but if you pump anything with enough power, it will. So something to pay attention to. Hopefully that was helpful. If I think of anything else to add, I will, but if not, then take care.